The first thing I learned on the first day of law school was this: good lawyers don't ask questions they don't already know the answers to. Hey, friends, welcome back to the Show Up season of the Mary Marantz Show, a season where we are just going to keep on reminding you over and over all season long that we never asked you to be perfect. We just asked you to show up so that you can let this be the year when you finally show up and get moving on all those things you can't go a day without thinking about. And to put my money where my mouth is, as it were, I decided that there would be no better time to show up and start doing the solo episodes that I've been wanting to add in here for a very long time. I absolutely love having guests on the show and the deep conversations we get to have and get into over there. But I also felt this nudge after nudge after nudge that it was finally time for me to start talking directly to you, the listeners, to start having some conversations here on the show that were just for us. And so, in this very first solo episode of the Show Up season, I want to start right here. The first thing I learned on the first day of law school was this: good lawyers don't ask questions they don't already know the answers to. On my very first day of law school, I walked into a classroom with all of my other nervous law school friends. There was a bow tied professor at the front, and he began the class by giving us this set of circumstances, these details of a case, and that was the only information we had. And he said, "What is the very first question you would ask?" This was the mother of the defendant on the stand. Hands shot up all over the room. Ask her if she knew where he was that day. Ask her if she bothered to go through his room. Ask her if he had been acting strange. And question after question, suggestion after suggestion was met with disdain from this professor that we were getting it wrong. We were apparently failing the very first exam he'd ever given us. Until finally he said, "Enough." He said, "Based on the limited set of facts I've given you, you have no idea how she would answer these questions. And write this down in your notes right now. More cases have been lost because young lawyers were bested by somebody on the stand going rogue than they were because they were ever bested by the opposition. A witness going rogue had taken out more cases than the opposition ever could." And that led us to this rule that we should follow for the next 3 years through law school: good lawyers don't ask questions they don't already know the answers to. It was one of those very specific rules for a very specific set of circumstances that runs the very specific risk of being absorbed into the wide open expanse of the rest of your once wild, untamed life. As a guiding principle, don't ask questions you don't already know the answers to leads us to a pretty fluorescent lit existence. We know this. If there was a version of life that equated to sitting alone on a cold metal table in a paper gown, your bare feet dangling mere inches above the Clorox streaked floor, still wet from the mop, clutching at all these see through seams, now desperate for closure, all while trying in vain to keep your most vulnerable parts hidden, this would be it. You sit very still and try not to move around too much, lest the crinkle of the paper be a bother to anybody. Rule number 2: don't ever be a bother to anybody. You sit straight up and plaster a too big smile on your overly tired face at every hint of a footstep falling just outside the door. This absolute buffoonery of an aw shucks good girl sideshow act, now gone hopelessly awry at the rote repetition and rehearsal of it all, as if they are secretly somewhere handing out gold stars for how well you waited your turn. Meanwhile, a standard industrial tube light flickers overhead and casts a sickly green pall over everything that's meant to keep you safe. Oh, sure, it's a sanitary life. A bleak, antiseptic, paper thin, neat, and tidy life. It smells of freshly opened packages of sterile gauze, and it's always 10 degrees colder than it should be. It is a life absolutely disinfected of anything that could ever get you into too much trouble, but it's not where the magic happens. Most people I know are under this illusion that you have to wait until you have everything figured out in order to get started, when the real truth is, the way it actually works in the real world, is that you have to get started in order to figure things out. But we as humans are not good with that middle part. I always say to my own coaching clients, do you know what's fun? Launching is fun. Announcing is fun. Finishing is fun. Do you know what's not fun? Every other moment in between. Because those moments are the not knowing moments. Those are the moments when all you have are questions and no answers. And in that moment of feeling like you don't have the answers, this is the silence settled in this fertile ground where shame creeps in. Your heart races, your mind races, your palms sweat. You feel like you have an entire law school class full of people staring at you as you fumble for the words, as you fumble for the answers. Your ability to tolerate staying in this place of not knowing is what Dr. Becky at Good Inside calls the learning space. This is that challenging, frustrating, yet crucial zone that exists between not knowing and knowing, where real growth and resilience are built by tolerating the discomfort, not rushing to the answer or running to ChatGPT to have it figure it out for you, and seeing frustration as a sign of learning, not failure. This in between time, she tells us, is where true resilience is built. She says success isn't about getting to a place of knowing all the answers the fastest. It's about how long you can tolerate the not knowing, the messy, muddy, hard, frustrating part where you're still just figuring it all out and you're asking a lot of questions you don't know the answers to. In my opinion, that tolerance for the not having all the answers or the results, let's be honest, to show for it yet, that's 99% of the work of showing up. It's being okay being a person who's playing the long game. It's understanding that consistency, even in the not knowing, especially in the not knowing, will be some of the most important work of our lives. But unfortunately, for most of us, our impatience, i.e., the inability to tolerate not having all the answers for very long, that impatience kicks in long before our consistency has a chance to. But I just want you to think about it this way. How boring, in fact, how very fluorescent lit would it be? Would this life be if we were all born knowing all the answers? I always tell my coaching clients, if tomorrow it was all just handed to you, it wouldn't mean a thing because we are people who like to build things with our own two hands. But there's another truth there for us if we look for it. If tomorrow you got to skip to the very end where you have everything figured out and you find out you got everything you ever wanted, I'm willing to bet good money that you would miss these exact years right here that you are currently trying so hard to wish away and fast forward your way through. To put it simple, I think you're going to miss this. I think I'm going to miss this. We have no idea how much the thrill of the climb, the thrill of figuring it out actually electrifies every raw nerve ending because we're all just trying so hard to numb ourselves from the pain of becoming. We're afraid it won't work out. But what we should really be afraid of is that we'll miss what it felt like before we knew the ending, before we had all the answers. If you want me to be really honest with you, in fact, right now, I think it's going to break our hearts one day that we did not soak in every moment, every in between scene at the exact moment it was unfolding. You know how you have those shows where you say to people that you just recommended the show to, I wish I could go back and watch this again for the very first time. I'm so jealous of you getting to see this for the very first time. This too is how it is with your life. This not knowing, it's a gift. I think we're going to miss it when it's gone. I know it doesn't feel that way right now. And I know you wish you could just, meme style, skip to the good part, 3-minute movie montage style. But it was never really about who could get there the fastest. It was always about who could come out of this not knowing the most changed. Good lawyers don't ask questions they don't already know the answers to. But for the rest of us, this not knowing, that's actually where the magic happens. Until next time, friends, this is the Mary Marantz Show, and welcome to your Show Up season. P.S. If you are liking these new solo episodes, though, and you want us to keep them coming, then make sure you let us know. That's a huge part of whether or not we're going to keep them going. Share this episode to your Instagram and be sure to tag me so I see it, and we will see you next time.